Yo, welcome back to Star Spangled Gamblers. I'm your host, Keen Dog. I've been hiding from you lately. Let's say that Star Spangled Gamblers has been on a hiatus, or maybe that's just the term we say when we're a little lazy. I am here. This is one of our extra special guest episodes, and Pratik's back here somewhere hiding, but I've got Jim Swift, editor at the Bulwark. You want to say hi, Jim?
Hey, how's it going, Star Spangled Gamblers?
Are you a Star Spangled Gambler, Jim? Are you allowed to do that?
No, I'm not. And I think my wife would find it irresponsible, given that we have young twins and a dog, to speculate.
Well, speculating is quite a habit to feed. Maybe
with
it's
money.
For
I speculate with pixels every day.
Wait. I don't even know what that means. Believe it or not, we do have requests for wife guests on this podcast to talk about how stupid it is. Pratik, you want to say hello? Your fans haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, hey, and thanks, Jim, for being on.
Jim, do you want to maybe give us a tour of that man cave? I'm seeing like some legends of like the old guard of the Republican Party. Jim and I used to be drinking buddies when we were nobodies in Washington, and now Jim's like a capital J journalist and makes things happen, and apparently has a great man cave. This is gonna be terrible radio for everyone who's listening to us, but I feel like I see like a John Warner, like a Senator John Warner. Like, yeah. What else you got going on back there?
Well, I'll move my camera a little bit so you can kind of look up at the top.
Oh, I'm seeing Bush Cheney,
so
John
Bush Cheney,
Kyle.
I worked on the Bush campaign in 2004. John Kyle, who I worked for a number of years. Irish for McCain, which is from New Hampshire from the 2008 primaries that he signed. Ted Stevens, 2008. I went and volunteered on Ted Stevens' last campaign that he lost to Mark Begich, which he also signed.
I feel like this is like the USC roster when Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart are on it. These are like all the great Republicans that no one gives a shit about anymore, and it kind of makes Republicans sad.
Yeah. I also have a Lisa Murkowski thing from her write-in campaign. I did some help on that.
Oh, no shit. I love that little jingle that they put on the radio. Like, it's like a 3-minute long commercial learning how to spell her name.
Yeah, and then in one of the ads, they misspelled her name. And they had to like they had to kill it and redo it. That was nothing with my doing, but I know the guy who did that. Then I have an original Weekly Standard cover proof. You might be able to see it. It's right under the Ted Stevens sign. It's got Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, and another woman, and he's a half-naked minotaur with Hillary leering from the White House. That was an actual cover we did at the Weekly Standard.
That's actually literally how I think about myself. Jim, you said a phrase that I think we want to talk to you about today. You said we might have to kill it and start it again. For those of you who aren't total losers who watch C-SPAN for fun, we watch C-SPAN for fun because we bet on politics.
Yeah.
The Bulwark is a publication of Republicans who are extremely critical of Donald Trump, and I don't know that you've ever written a kind word about him in your publication's history, but kill it and restart it. I guess that's sort of, we're going to talk to you about bets about how bad it's going to get for the Republican Party in the next couple months.
Yes.
Do you want to just give us like a little primer? Like, are you excited to see how fucking terrible this election's going to be, or are you just like really dark on the inside?
I'm really dark on the inside. John McCain used to joke that it's always darkest before it goes pitch black, and he was kind of quoting Mao Zedong, even though I don't think that was Mao Zedong, but that's who he liked to attribute it to. And Bill Kristol, our founder, likes that phrase as well. Yeah, so the Bulwark, we started it in January of 2019 after the Weekly Standard, where I had worked for about 7 years. Got shut down by our owner for being anti-Trump. That isn't the only reason they shut us down. Like, we fought with them over editorial control and everything. But at the end of the day, they thought being anti-Trump was bad for business, so they cut us up for parts, gave all of our subscribers to the Washington Examiner, which is a free weekly magazine in Washington you can get near the train stations or pay $60 a year for if you don't live in DC.
I think you can get crack near the train stations too.
Yeah. It's and they got really nice paper and everything. Not that I'm bitter, but Bill went to the people who fund the Bulwark, which was just a sleepy little aggregator site, and said, "Hey, we all got fired. Let's try turning this into like a full-fledged publication." And they said, "Cool."
The most depressing thing about people who are like serious thought leaders who are right of center is that there's like you have to get someone to fund it. Like where I wish we had our HBO, but I guess I shouldn't say we because we bet on politics. So I'm not supposed to be biased, but I just wish we had more. Jim, can you please give us more?
Yeah, no, and our a bunch of my old colleagues also started a publication with Steve Hayes, who's the last editor of the Standard, called The Dispatch, and they are pretty much entirely paywalled. They're sort of like an athletic model. But even then, that still required millions of dollars in startup funding. So it's a sad. The state of journalism on the right is almost as sad as the state of politics on the right. I still think some bright spots. But
the state of journalism is just depressing as fuck. Pratik, you used to be a journalist. Before we actually talk about betting on politics, maybe you can tell us about why you're not a journalist. Because I don't know, man. It's a tough racket.
Yeah, I mean, so actually, Jim, I don't know if you know, I was the executive editor at the American Conservative. I think actually right around when the Weekly Standard was folding. And, ironically enough, actually, we had a similar issue as the Standard, not to the same degree, but basically on the question of how do you handle the Trump phenomenon. And we were in this unusual boat where many of the themes that the American Conservative had taken on for many years had put the publication in opposition to Republican establishment thinking. And yet, when Trump came around to pick up on some of these themes, we were actually very divided and skeptical about Trump because basically we recognized that Trump would, in all likelihood, not be competent and sort of stir up a backlash. But we found that our readers, anytime we would run even mediocre pro-Trump content, that stuff would resonate with our readers. So I think we're all kind of in this difficult boat where sort of intellectually minded conservatives want one thing and our base and the party wants another thing. And
was Jim Antle there when...
No, he was at the Examiner, so he took over after I left.
Yeah, and now he's back there. But it's interesting you mentioned about the readers. I read the Weekly Standard since 1999, and so I was there during the ups and downs. When Bush was in power, when Obama was in power. I started there in 2012, but I remember, Harriet Miers, the failed Supreme Court pick that the Weekly Standard was very much opposed to. It's shooting inside the tent, and people don't like that kind of stuff. And after 8 years of Obama, we got a lot of readers who they wanted things that confirmed their worldview, and we were the best place for anti-Obama stuff. Then Trump comes around and they'd be like, you would never be this mean to Obama. You would never put a cover of him on your image of your magazine that would be critical. I'm like, oh, cool. Do you want the 74 copies of the different weekly magazines?
That was my job for 8 years.
Yeah. And so one person said that we ran a cover with Trump and Melania, and Melania was wearing some kind of kinky outfit, kind of getting sworn in. They're like, you would have never done this to Obama. And so I went through the archives and I pulled an image from every single of the 74 covers we did that were critical. And it was something like 74. And I'm like, hey, here are the 74 cover stories you apparently missed in the last 8 years, But you never win with those folks because it's just tribalism.
Jim, you're in a safe space here. So because we're mediocre podcasters, almost everyone who listens to this bets on politics. So these are not people who are looking for cues to reward their tribal leanings.
Sure.
They're people who want to know, they want keen insights, such as your own, about what's happening. So our extra special guest format is bar games. The bar games we play are Would You Rather, and long and short, but I'm gonna critique too. And by the way, if you get any genius ideas, we like to reward genius on this podcast. So if you want to spit some game at us, we'll go on the defensive. But we're gonna ask you, would you rather take any of what we think are either really bad bets or really good bets, and you can tell us why you think one is savvier than the other.
Sure.
So on the topic of administrations that you have never been shy about criticizing, would you rather buy Bill Barr or Mike Pompeo to be the next cabinet member to quit or to get forced out?
I think Bill Barr is the smarter bet there.
Ooh, that's spicy.
Because this is the end for him. He's an old guard, firm believer in strong executive power, and Mike Pompeo clearly wants to have a political future, whether he's running for governor or senator or maybe even president. I mean, keep in mind he was a backbenching congressman before the Trump administration.
Meteoric rise. I used to work with them.
Yeah.
Definition of a backbencher.
Yeah, but he wants to have a future. I don't think Bill Barr gives a shit. I think Bill Barr, he's been very loyal to Trump, but I think Bill Barr, if there was the right hill to die on of principle and it involved getting fired by Trump, he'd probably do it.
So that's okay. Pratik and I were arguing about this lately. Like, is Bill Barr the governor on Trump's impulses, or is he the enabler? I don't know. PJ, I feel like we're kind of at odds about that question.
Well, I kind of expected Barr, being a George H.W. guy, to kind of be a technocrat and generally be the kind of attorney general we normally have. I mean, he has defied every expectation I've had in terms of how partisan he's been, how loyal he's been to the president, how ideological he's been on so many issues. So I don't think that he's itching to leave the administration. I think that he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who wants to go and sell a memoir right now. I think he'll be there as long as he can. But I agree with Jim that there are probably issues or something that could happen where Barr would resign as a matter of principle in a way that I don't think is the case with Pompeo. I mean, Jim, do you have a view on more generally which Trump cabinet official will be the first one to leave? And to give you an idea of where the markets are, Azar is at 42%, Mark Esper at 17%, and then Barr at 11% and Pompeo at 7%. But keep in mind that part of the reason Azar is so high is because if no one leaves, or they all leave at the same time, I guess, the market will close with Azar because he's alphabetical. So, but nevertheless, I think he's the market favorite.
Yeah, I think Azar and Esper, the smart money are on them. I mean, Trump likes fucking with the military because he's got this weird fetish for shit, whether it's having dudes in battle fatigues, come while he's tear gassing peaceful protesters to do a photo op at a church with a book that he probably has never really even read. Azar, it's just with coronavirus, really. You're
talking about the Constitution or the Bible, Jim.
We don't know what was in that book. But it was too long to be the Constitution. It was definitely a Bible. It was Ivanka's Bible, I think. But
good.
And with coronavirus, anything could happen. Just Trump is so intent on reopening the economy and trying to get back those 20 million lost jobs, because that was a huge thing his campaign was focusing on for 2020. But I will tell you, one cabinet secretary.
I think the bronies are kind of over, though. Like, people have just moved on for that. I feel like Azar's he's off the hot seat.
People they may have moved off, but the virus hasn't. Yeah,
true.
But I will tell you one cabinet secretary who will be there. The very last thing, and I would stake my political fortunes on this, is Elaine Chao.
You better be right, because I'm going to stake my literal fortunes on it.
Elaine Chao will be there until the bitter end.
Oh yeah.
Why is that?
Because she was the longest serving Secretary of Labor for George W. Bush, and she has Mitch McConnell's ear. Trump would never fire her. And unless some scandal, and there are some scandals, as you know, McConnell's up for re-election and with DOT, but she is one of those, she's one of these ride or die people. Unless she gets forced out, she's going to be there at transportation until the last minute.
Wait, let me ask you a question about that, though. Like, Trump and Mitch McConnell walk into it like a neutral playing field. Say it's a hotel conference room somewhere in Chicago or New York City. Like, who thinks he's the boss in that meeting? Like, do you think that McConnell thinks that he works for Trump, or Trump is like, scared of Mitch?
So I know Leader McConnell, not like very well personally, but when I worked for Senator Kyle was the whip. So I know a lot of people from McConnell world, and that was before you and I met on the House side with Davis and them.
I think we were slamming beers when you were still a Kyle staffer.
Yeah, because of the LC list server.
That's right.
in softball. I
Right.
think.
Inside baseball for everyone here.
Mitch McConnell has brass balls, and he goes into these meetings, and I think he is not someone who's afraid to tell Trump the truth. I think that, or what his truth is. I don't think he thinks he works for Donald Trump. I think it's a codependent sort of relationship. But, unlike Speaker Ryan, he's not going out of his way to really criticize. Like Ryan did that whole conference call. It's just, the House members at the right before the election was like, that's it. You guys don't have to die on this hill. McConnell is dying on this hill. They've quote unquote tied themselves to the mast of Trumpism, which I think will prove to be a costly mistake for Senate Republicans. But, these nominees don't get through. Trump doesn't get what he wants unless Mitch McConnell's happy.
So my opinion is that I feel like Mitch McConnell's kind of like Tom Brady, and you could just stick him in any offense and he can win. But I'm not sure that, he's like he's not like a motivator. He's not Barack Obama or Ronald Reagan. I don't know how we got.
He's not the Gipper. You don't win one for and he's not inspiring either. Mitch McConnell is never. It's just how do you know when he's mad? How do you know when he's sad? He's just so monotone that emotionally he's very much not there.
Monotone moves the ball down the field 5 yards at a time.
Yeah. Let's keep in mind though that I think, whether or not Trump gets reelected, I don't think McConnell is going to be a significant factor here, but regardless of what Trump's fortunes are in November, I absolutely think he has the ability to deny McConnell a re-election. So I think McConnell's a savvier political operative, but I think that Trump has the upper hand in the relationship, even when you account for the fact that the president inherently tends to be at an advantage.
And a bully, to your point. He's glad to lose Republican seats and has shown a willingness almost every time he's gone after somebody in the Senate Republican or House Democrat or House Republican caucus. Has that seat been retained by Republicans? Usually not.
Pratik and I have been on this podcast for a while, saying what you probably presupposed in November 10th, 2016, which is this could be kind of a rough cycle for Republicans. So we're making a lot of money right now betting on what Senate race is going to be the closest, which is really a question of what's the high water mark of how bad it's going to get. Uh-huh. So would you rather be betting on Joni Ernst or Lindsey Graham to lose? Iowa or South Carolina, for those of you out there?
In that I would make money if I correctly predicted who lost.
Or if you thought that, because the way we bet is sort of stock market style. So if you thought that there would be enough anxiety and enough, media or the right story that would cause a total freak out, that would, spike a Democrat share or make the Republican drop, what's the nightmare scenario here that could actually come true?
The nightmare scenario is it's just in South Carolina, you look at their voters and compare them to Iowans. Iowans have been trending leftward and, been throwing out Republicans left and right. Lindsey Graham is particularly polarizing, but I think it would be a worse high water mark for Republicans if Lindsey Graham lost than Ernst. Because, Iowa's sort of been trending that way, and Iowans, they have that Midwestern sensibility about them where they don't get outraged and emotional like Southerners.
I don't know. It's funny to me because
I was trying to bait you there, Keeney. I was trying to bait you.
I look, I'm from Kentucky and I'm unpopular because I identify as a Midwesterner. But it's interesting to me, though, that we talk to a lot of people who bet on politics. And for some reason, a lot of them, I thought they'd be kind of like badass dudes with tattoos and Jeeps who just like flushing money down the toilet. But it turns out a lot of these guys are very savvy and tend to be kind of liberal leaning data scientist types. And they all lament Iowa kind of being a flunky for Republicans in national elections, the way that Republicans lament losing Orange County or something like that. They're like, oh my God, how's Iowa gone? This is fucking let me go jump off that really tall bridge over the river. It's funny to hear you say that because I guess we all see the grass as being less green everywhere in politics, maybe.
Well, the thing to understand about Iowa is you think back from Field of Dreams, the wife character from Field of Dreams, who, starts screaming at the woman at the education board committee hearing about burning books and calls her a Nazi. There are a lot of liberals in Iowa. That depiction wasn't wrong. Girl I used to work with in Senator Harkin's office is in the Iowa legislature now, and I've always kind of like mentally thought of her as that woman, like just pure fire and fire and brimstone.
I saw you winding up there, Pratik. I'm your bully. I'm bouncing in this conversation for you.
Oh, no, well, so, I mean, on the Senate races, in terms of a Democratic high water mark, I guess, I mean, so of the following four Senate races, Iowa, Montana, Georgia, or Texas, do you think the Democrats are going to take all four, or what do you think is going to happen with those four?
Iowa, Montana, Georgia, and Texas.
And the Georgia regular, I guess we should focus on.
Yeah, I still think Republicans win Texas this time. I mean, the demographics are kind of going Arizona's way. Republicans are going to be in trouble in Texas in coming years. I'd say, based on the current trajectory, Democrats pick up the other three, including Montana, and that will be shocking to people.
I mean, I feel like Steve Daines is like general average bro Republican. He's like ordering an Amstel Light to try and impress people. Like that's kind of his personality.
If he's Amstel Light, is Cory Gardner like Natty Ice?
No, Cory Gardner is like, you know what? Cory Gardner was in the same class as Mike Pompeo. Also, both freshmen on the Energy and Commerce Committee. I saw the back of their heads for hours and hours and hours of my life. Cory Gardner's just the guy who got promoted maybe a little too early in his career. I mean, he'll always be a U.S. senator, but maybe if he had gotten that job a little later, I don't know, maybe he just got lucky too soon.
Yeah, that could be it, and you never know with the.
So like White Claw,
ain't no law,
or maybe Truly, maybe he's like the Truly of upwardly mobile Republicans. We're all betting against him.
Yeah, I'd say they take 3 out of the 4. I don't think Texas is a state Republicans have to worry about yet. Texas will eventually be like Virginia for the Republicans. They're just going to wonder what the hell happened. They won't keep up track with the changing demographics of their state, and then they'll keep nominating idiots. And that's what, I mean, I have John Warner, and the best thing about that John Warner picture behind me, I got that when Warner retired. Someone who worked for him just left it out in the hallway in the Senate offices. I'm like, this is a perfectly nice framed 1984 John Warner for Senate sign. I'm keeping it. My wife hates it. That's why it's down here in the office. But, you basically nominate neo-Confederates, and you wonder why the Republicans always just lose in Virginia. Texas is going to be nominating the Dan Patricks of the world. In the Ted Cruz only really won because Beto O'Rourke was like intensely memeable, and the right-wing attack media saved his butt.
I understand. I think it's easy to project short and kind of midterm trends, but there's always that thing coming. And when people talk about demographic change, I feel like they discount the fact that as demographics change, demographics also stratify. So I think that the Republican Party of the future is going to be in a lot of trouble because of Donald Trump. But I think that there are a lot of other things happening at the same time. So I'm not like really ready to say that, that some of these outcomes are just on autopilot. That's just not true.
I mean, I'm also basing that on I'm predicting, like I used the Virginia example, that the Republican Party of Texas and the National Republican Party will not adapt, and they will keep nominating, kind of like folks to die at the Alamo.
I mean, that's certainly the easy thing. It's like, it's always easier. People are like, oh my God, we're all going to drive electric cars. Well, like the truth is, it's a lot easier to pay a quarter more for gas than it is to pay $10,000 more for an electric car. Yeah. And the Republican Party is definitely dealing with that. It's always easier to nominate a bigger idiot that'll win a larger proportion of a smaller, electorate in a primary than it is. But the Democratic Party is going to have the opposite problem, because it's going to, like, now the Democratic Party is the party of like radicalism and literally burn it downism. And that, as they gain power, like that will cause them to factionalize and be a dumpster fire the way the Republicans have been since, call it 2008, 2010.
Yeah. The Tea Party, massive success.
It is amazing how that happens, right? Or not amazing at all. Or
governing is hard. People who haven't had to do it don't really understand how hard it is.
So when you say that Texas will be safe, do you think also for the presidential, or do you think that we could see the Democrat or like Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is for president win it in the presidential, but then the Republicans keep the Senate.
I think that's unlikely but possible. I also work, in addition to the Bulwark, I work at Republican Voters Against Trump, and
that's very direct.
Yeah.
What's your objective?
To make sure Donald Trump loses, obviously.
I'm just curious. I couldn't tell from the name.
Yeah, it's like a meat cleaver to the head. But we talk with a lot of voters, and we do a lot of focus groups. We do commercials on locally and nationally, and we've been doing a lot of these sort of testimonials from lifelong Republicans, people who left the party because of Trump, or people who voted for Trump and regret it and won't do it again, and telling their story. And we get them from Texas, and it's always interesting because we have a bunch of people doing this stuff, so I don't get to talk to everyone who makes videos, and a lot of times they're just really surprising to me. This good old boy from Texas, and he's just like, I'll never vote for Republicans again until we start getting people who weren't part of this whole Trump cult. And I'm like, whoa, it's just people from all walks of life, but you get some good old boys there with the twang, and you just kind of hear them. It's like it's just really interesting to hear their stories. But it's possible. People really hate Trump and Trumpism, but I don't think those voters are splitting the ballot. I think they're either not voting for Cornyn and not voting for Trump. But I think there'll be some people who will think Big Bad John is still worth sending back to Washington, but Trump isn't.
Yeah, the markets right now have the odds of the Democrats winning Texas in the presidential at 36%. I bought the Democrats pretty early in this market, figuring that the price would go up. I think the markets are kind of nearing the point where I no longer want to get involved one way or the other. If things really turn against Trump in the fall, then I think absolutely Texas could be in play. But I don't know. I guess part of this is I don't know what the lesson is of 2018 with Beto and Ted Cruz. Because everyone says that, Cruz was unlikable and so forth. But whether or not he's likable, I think he's also a guy who's extraordinarily talented, and he ran a competent campaign in a way that I think is probably not in the cards for Trump. That said, for Texas to go for the Democrats in a presidential election, we're, like you said, we're not at Virginia level turn yet. I think it might take another couple of years. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence here with that one.
Ted Cruz is likable after 2 bottles of wine. That I can tell you.
He's likable after like 10 years. I hated Ted Cruz for so long, but now I'm on Twitter and I just laugh every time he tweets. And probably half of you just unsubscribe because his tweets are so politically incorrect. But
he was dunking on me on Twitter today. I made it.
I want to get dunked on by Ted Cruz or your staff. Dunk on me, please. Let's go. I'm chasing clout.
He said that pennies were made of copper. Pennies are made of zinc and plated in copper. They used to be made of copper, but he used some dumb analogy, and I just quote tweeted him. I said, pennies are made of zinc.
Well, if we were on the playground in 4th grade, I would probably beat you up and take your lunch money for knowing that.
He's only responsible for, getting our money. Congress oversees the printing of money.
They've all got their strengths and weaknesses.
Well, we have a number of items in the mailbag about Jim's point about the Republican Party adapting. Should I read a couple of those? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've gotten a lot of mail on this question. One from Harrison on the Republican Party. He says, I don't see how the current GOP/Fox News switched to being a competent and serious opposition party. It's not like they're going to revert back to normal once Trump is gone. He basically predicts the GOP is headed the way of the Whigs, and by that he's saying, I don't think the GOP is going anywhere anytime soon. I just don't think they'll be a viable force in national elections. And then we had another reader, this is Armenian Bacon, who's a very good trader. He goes even further and he predicts that, and I'm quoting here, the GOP will be splitting into two next year. There will be a Trump-style Tea Party that is extremely anti-immigration, anti-internationalist, anti-government, basically racist whites with guns, and a mainstream Republican Party made up of pro-business, anti-tax, anti-regulation, Jeb Bush types who abhor the racism and demagoguery. So I guess
Those
the
Democratic
bigger
donors.
yeah, no, so I mean the question here is like how bad do things get for the Republican Party? How coherent of a force will it be? What's your projection here?
I think the Whigs is a good analogy. I wrote a story about the Margaret Chase Smith Declaration of Conscience, which happened about 70 years ago last month. And between when Margaret Chase Smith made that statement during the era of McCarthyism and the election of Ronald Reagan, conservatives controlled Congress for 4 years, two-year spurts. I think that the Republican Party is about to enter a long period of irrelevancy. Maybe not as long as that, but longer than by recent historical standards. To the second point, it would be surprising to me if the GOP split in two. People have always been predicting that the Catholic Church is going to split, and the social justice liberals and the rad trads are they're gonna have it out, sort of like the Methodists, maybe over like gay marriage or something. That hasn't ever come to bear. If Trump brought the end of the two-party system, it wouldn't be something that shocked me anymore, but I don't see it happening. The libertarians are so nuts that they never can get their shit together. And a lot of people on the right, would try and seek refuge from them. But I think, a lot of people, until the GOP gets their house in order, are just going to call themselves independents, or they'll vote for Democrats.
Well, it's sort of funny because Trump is almost the first independent. There's like this fantasy that all Americans have about politics, and we can number a few of them. But two of them are, I think, someone who's like a business CEO type should be president. I don't like these government guys. And another one is someone from a third party should be president. And, as you and your body work will attest to, like, Donald Trump is by no means any type of Republican people thought of as a Republican even a couple of years ago. So it's been this weird experiment in like fantasy indulgence. And it seems like the fantasy is turning into a nightmare for the Republicans this cycle.
Yeah, we got another letter to this one. It's kind of the opposite take from Josh. He basically says demographics may matter here, but 2016 showed that even as there are demographic trends, there's still a lot of room for the Republican Party. I'm kind of partial to that thesis in the sense that we've had in recent elections some really bad blowouts. I mean, Reagan in '84, Nixon, so forth. And in every case, the two-party system has survived and been resilient. And I think the saving grace for the Republican Party is simply the fact that our politics are so racially polarized and our demographics are kind of headed in that direction that even if Trump loses, I don't think he's at risk of like a 49, 48 state blowout.
Well, can we ask you one more would you rather about that to put a cap on that point?
Sure.
We like on this podcast, we had taken the opinion that, well, I'll just say it this way. Would you rather be long Tammy Duckworth or Val Demings to be Biden's VP? Like, we've sort of been looking for the candidate who's going to trigger white people the least and, kind of include that in our rubric for who we think will get the job. But
so it's a choice between Duckworth or Demings.
Right. And they're both about 10-1 odds right now to get the gig.
Yeah.
Or you can tell me you'd short both. I don't know. What do you think?
I like Val Demings. If I'm Trump, I pick Val Demings. But if you're talking about triggering white people the least, it's Tammy Duckworth. The problem, I think, for Demings, as opposed to Duckworth, is people will ascribe to her what Kamala Harris kind of brought. Like, Republican voters find Kamala Harris very off-putting. Frankly, the GOP is good at demonizing minorities on the left with dog whistles. And, Duckworth will trigger fewer white voters because, she served. But I think Val Demings is extremely smart. I don't like Kamala Harris at all. She's very off-putting. But I've been consistently impressed watching Demings in her time in government.
Right now, the markets are Kamala 51%, Susan Rice at 14%, Val Demings 13%, Duckworth 12%, and then Warren at 8%.
I think the market is too hot on Susan Rice. Biden picked her, the GOP would literally like light off all the nuclear weapons in their bunker and go insane. But and not in a way that would make them look insane, which they are. But she's got way too much baggage. I think the market's a little too confident.
That's so funny because like no voters probably give a shit about Susan Rice, but like of course politicians picking their petty fights that don't matter would like.
Totally no, I think you're wrong. I think your typical right wing nutjob voter knows who Susan Rice is and probably has at least 3 conspiracy theories that involve her.
Are you referring to Benghazi or other things?
Yeah, I mean it's just she probably gave the islands to Russia too. I mean just like the Wrangel Islands, but like. It's just no. I don't think Biden picks her, and I think your ordinary sort of talk radio listener, Fox News viewer, knows a lot more about Susan Rice than people expect, and none of it's positive. Like she probably drowns puppies back in the.
I think people. I mean, this isn't the point of this podcast, but I'll respond to you to tickle my own ego. I think people learn to dislike Susan Rice. They're like, who's that? And they're like, oh, she's like the Benghazi chick. Okay. But like, I feel like your typical white Republican voter just hears Kamala Harris open her mouth and they're like, who is this monster? Like, send her to a radar station in Alaska and like take away her cell phone. I never want to hear her talk again. Like, I feel like Republicans so viscerally hate Kamala Harris. And they don't need to be educated as to why they dislike her. Whereas Susan Rice, they kind of learned who she was, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't like her." I saw that John Krasinski movie about this. It was fucking terrible.
Well, with Kamala, I mean, you think back to the SNL portrayal of her. Oh no, like SNL is unknowingly playing like they were, I think, gushing over her in a way, but. You got to be careful about when you start contributing these tropes. I think that actually hurt her chances here because now she's kind of got this Sarah Palin, I can see Russia from my house, Tina Fey sort of memeability to her that the right will seize on and use.
Yeah, she's got that like Marco Rubio thing where everyone says like, oh, we're supposed to like this person for our partisan reasons. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think people really like her. I think people like who they like and it's not her. But that doesn't mean she won't be the vice president.
Yeah, we got a letter from Brock Stone. She'd be Biden's Palin. So yeah, I wanted to ask you though, obviously now you're seeing Republicans for Biden group or coalition emerging. Who knows how big it'll be, but do you think that Republicans for Biden will have any kind of influence or say in who Biden picks? Because I agree with Alex. I mean, Kamala would be kind of an insult in a way to Republicans and independents who are willing to get behind Biden. But that may just not matter. I mean, what's your read on that?
I don't know anybody or at least nobody personally or well or talked to anyone who actually works for the Biden campaign. I think they are aware of the help Biden got from Never Trump Republicans. I mean, if you want to talk about an unintended consequence of shutting down the GOP primaries to protect the bad orange man's ego, freeing people like me up to vote for Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders because we didn't have a Republican primary, in which I would have gladly voted against Trump. That said, I don't think the Biden people think they owe Republican shit. If Joe Biden picked Stacey Abrams, I wouldn't vote for him. No way. Like she's.
What if she wore a cape?
No, but Stacey Abrams, it could be like is the left Sarah she's the left Sarah Palin, but she got to the grievance part way earlier than Sarah Palin did. I think that the Biden people know that people hate Trump enough that as long as he doesn't really fuck up the VP spot, he'll get most of the Never Trump, Republican people voting for him. Or if they doesn't get their vote, they're just not going to vote for Trump. They'll just leave it blank or stay home.
Sounds like you would have bet on Amy Klobuchar with us 5 months ago before we lost all that money.
My Wishcast vote would have been for Amy Klobuchar, but I'm not sure I would have put money on it at the time.
Yeah. I started getting worried about that one as soon as I heard every Republican I know saying, "Oh yeah, I think Amy would be great." Jim, we are sort of getting to the end of the amount of time that we ask our users for. We're a very user-driven podcast, or at least that's what we say outwardly. You're on the hot seat for like 1 minute here. We're standing at the plate. We're trying to swing at pitches to hit a home run, bet it on politics. What's the pitch that we don't see coming? Like, what's the thing that no one's paying attention to? Is there someone on the Supreme Court that's going to retire? Is there a cabinet member who's going to leave? Is there a Senate race that's going to go one way? Is there an event in world history that's about to unfold? If you had to bet on one like totally lunatic thing, this is your closing song, so don't mess it up.
I wish you would have given me more time to think about this fastball, but that's the way fastballs work, right? You didn't
yeah, that's right. You just blink and swing.
There will not be any change on the Supreme Court until after the election. And when there is change, there'll be 2 seats.
You want to tell me which ones and in what order, and if they're announced on the same day?
I think that someone will probably pass away. I think we all know who I'm thinking about, but I don't want to be seen like I'm wishing for that because I don't want anyone to die. But I think
as we all do.
You might see someone older, like Souter, just say like I want to give somebody who's younger the opportunity.
And then we'll nominate Pratik.
Actually, wait, sorry. Souter is not on the Supreme Court anymore. Who was I thinking about?
Breyer?
Breyer. Yeah, sorry. I like right after I said that, I was just like, wait, I don't think he's on the Supreme Court anymore.
It's okay. They all go ahead.
No, I mean the markets went crazy the last few days. I don't know if you saw Hugh Hewitt was speculating that Alito might be retiring soon, and Costa at the Washington Post thinks that Clarence Thomas might go. I think there are very good deals here right now. I agree with Jim. We're not seeing anything, at least until after the election. So you can short Thomas at 80%. Alito right now is trading at 17% to be next. I think buying no there remains a good deal. And Ginsburg being the next one out is at 60%. I have some yes shares at that price. So.
Jim, that was a fire take. That was a nice little swing on that fastball.
Thank you.
Boys
are going to filibuster for a bit.
You know what? You learned well from your bosses. Well, this is Star Spangled Gamblers. Jim Swift from the Bulwark. Jim, you want to tell people where they can find you?
You can find me at thebulwark.com, on Twitter at JimSwiftDC. You can also find my video where I'm wearing the same outfit, minus the hat, at rvat.org, Republican Voters Against Trump. We make great ads. James Carville loves them because Republicans, you know how to fight. They just wake up and they fight. They don't do conference calls and that. They just fight. They wake up and they fight. They eat breakfast and they fight. It's strange to have James Carville being like, I love the Bulwark. It's just like, wow, cool,
So the next time you're on this podcast, you're going to perform strictly as James Carville. Pratik, you got anything before we say goodnight?
No, thank you, Jim, for being on.
Nice to meet you, Pratik. I could also do Mark Levin on the next show.
That sounds truly horrifying.
I think everyone would stop listening to your podcast, Keen Dog.
We'll say mean things about Democrats in the next podcast. We do that too often. I'm Keen Dog. This is Star Spangled Gamblers. Thanks for being with us. Jim Swift, Pratik Chugli. Good night.